Hey guys, and welcome to the video. Today I will be discussing a couple of rework/tweak possibilities that I think would be fitting for the recently primed Dragon Warframe Chroma. Now, before we start, I would like to point out that such rework ideas are most often quite subjective, and hence I will be exploring sort of multiple possibilities in order to generalize a bit more the ideas. However, this does not mean that my ideas are the be-all end-all, so I would highly encourage you, the viewer, to leave your ideas down in the comments below, and if you like any of my ideas, feel free to drop a like and share the video with other channels. So, to start off, let's discuss Chroma's passive ability. His passive ability basically uses his energy color to determine what elemental alignment his abilities will have. Now, let's be real here. This is nothing more than glorified fashion frame advice, and realistically speaking, not really a passive. So, since most players I have spoke with are really yearning to be able to switch elements during the mission, which we will address shortly by the way, one can use Equinox's passive as a sort of template where you have it the same way, where the energy color only determines his starting element when loading into a mission. Along with this, we can give him something a bit more, how do you say, functional and related to his team. For example, say 50% chance to ignore elemental status effects. Now, this first idea is sort of based on the fact that one of Chroma's downsides when compared to most other tanks is that he has no way to resist knockdowns innately, which leaves him very vulnerable when he's knocked down, as I'm sure most of us have experienced at some time or another, and this can also help him since he's one of the main Eidolon hunting Warframes, because it protects him from some of the magnetic procs that the Eidolon can unleash. Now, a second possibility for a passive is that every time he inflicts an elemental status effect on an enemy, he can either heal or restore 2% of his total health or shields respectively. Now, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? This way he can take advantage of the take damage to deal damage kind of concept he's designed around. So, you know, you can take it which way you want. You either have him gain shields or gain health, depending on what you value more. Another example of a good passive would be that all elemental damage type on his weapons become, say, 10% stronger, meaning that, for example, if you have radiation, your weapon deals 100 radiation, that 100 radiation is 110 now, and if your weapon deals 100 toxin and 100 blast, you have 110 toxin, 110 blast now. You know, and just for the elementals, not for the physical types, which I think could also be functional because it helps skew the procs more towards the elementals, like for example when having gas or corrosive on your weapons, or viral. So yeah. Moving on, Chroma's first ability currently is Spectral Scream, which effectively works just like an Ignis that goes through walls, I believe, as well. Not sure about that. Now, it is popular opinion that this ability is rather bad, and some radical changes are needed here. For our rework, let's give this ability a tap-hold interaction, similar to Ivara's Quiver, and let's rename it to Spectral Skin, just to be different, you know. Now, tapping the ability button enables Chroma to change his elemental alignment on the fly, and grant Chroma 75 shields per switch. Now this here is just basically, I threw it in there to synergize a bit more with Vex Armour, since, you know, if you're out of shields when you cast Vex Armour, be it, you know, not keeping your eye on the timer or whatever, when you cast Vex Armour and you happen to be out of shields, you just gain no armor buff. So this way you can just do a few switches on the fly and gain some shields to drain and gain more armor. That aside, now holding the ability button, Chroma does a Spectral Scream, but this time it is a much wider cone, say 160 degrees in front of him and extending to, I don't know, 15 meters. Now, these are both unaffected by range, so it doesn't make the ability useless since most Chroma players generally dump range for more duration. Now, this Spectral Scream has a 75% status chance, and with each status effect, Spectral Scream's damage is multiplied by 1.07 times and stacks indefinitely. So this is a sort of multiplicative stacking damage we have here for each time a status procs, which I think you gain a sort of 3 times damage multiplier at around 20 procs or so, which I think it's pretty decent over the base damage that you initially have. And when toggling off the ability or deactivating it, Chroma gains plus 2% of the current element to all of his weapons, and this stacks additively for each damage stack on Spectral Scream. So it's sort of like if the damage of Spectral Scream stacks up 10 times, you gain plus 20% of that elemental damage to all your weapons for a short period of time. Now, this mechanism, I believe, sort of caters to the majority of the player base who want Chroma to be able to switch elements on the fly, and also it caters to the more minority of the player base who want sort of Spectral Scream to be good in order to maintain his dragonness. Now, Chroma's second and third ability I will be discussing in conjunction, since they are already considered to be very closely related by the community. Firstly, one would need to address the issue that Elemental Ward has, where most people consider it to only have one element that is worth using. Making Elemental Ward recastable, for example, will make fire and electric more useful. Just like that, right off the bat. Because since they offer a sort of health and shield restore on cast, it will allow Chroma to sort of restore his health and shields at will, actually improve his tanking capability by making him more survivable, because you're giving yourself more health for the enemies to chew off of you. Now, for electricity, you know how it sort of discharges electricity on enemies after you gain some hits. So every electrical discharge from the ward would grant Chroma some energy back, based sort of, say, on 20% of the stored up damage of the ward, you know, because the ward basically stores damage and then discharges it with a multiplier to the enemies depending on how many damage you have stored. Now, since shields are a bit meh in the game, it gives electricity a second purpose where it sort of gives Chroma a bit more energy back. Which, by the way, this value is not affected by the multiplier or power strength. Now, with regards to Toxin, it would be nice if it was reverted to how it was in the good old days, you know, in Parkour 1.0, where it gave a stamina buff, if I remember correctly, and now into Parkour 2.0, along with the holster speed and reload speed, which are, you know, whatever, I mean, they're not that useful. Toxin Ward would now grant Chroma also a sprint and bullet jump bonus, which, you know, since we are able to switch elements on the fly between confrontations, so say you're hunting an Eidolon and the lures weren't ready, you shot him down and he teleports. In order to track him down again, you know, you could switch to Toxin and gain a lot of mobility, and then, you know, switch back, giving it sort of that utility bonus rather than tankiness, which I think would give him more interaction with the team as well, since Elemental Ward also buffs the team, and you would be able to keep up with the faster warframes that you're playing with. And switching the element with Spectral Skin would automatically change the ward's element, so you won't have to recast it again. And now, for Vex Armor, this ability is more or less fine as it is, and not much change is required here. In fact, pretty much no change required. However, let us for a moment think outside of the colorful box that is Chroma, and consider the following. Most people who play Chroma generally just press 2 and 3 together, you know, always have both Vex Armor and Elemental Ward active at all times. So they are pretty much intertwined in the minds of the players, so why not, now bear with me here, combine these abilities into one ability, completely combined. You know, we have, by pressing 3, you have all of the functionality of Vex Armor and all of the functionality of Elemental Ward, and let's call it, I don't know, Vexing Ward, whatever. Now, having them all in one ability automatically opens Chroma up to a lot of possibilities, because putting them to one ability means you are the same, but have a free ability slot, which can be literally anything. So, plus another reason why it would be awesome to put Vex Armor with Elemental Ward is that Vex Armor, which is his pretty much only good ability, is ironically independent of the elemental theme he has going on. So, you know, putting them together automatically fixes that. And now, in his number 2 slot, you can do pretty much anything. So, for example, the first thing that came to my mind was something I called Elemental Rage in my notes here, where Chroma's weapons have a 15% chance to inflict a target with a random base elemental on each shot/hit, with the selected element being the most likely to proc. Now, this is actually very sort of, you know, Chroma now is the meta for Eidolons, but for anywhere else he's sort of just for the true mains of Chroma, so to speak. If you don't main Chroma, you're not gonna specifically go and grab Chroma to go to any random mission. But this sort of improves his power outside of Eidolon hunting, because in particular it improves his power as a melee frame, because, you know, with Condition Overload you're getting more or less 4 other procs that buff your melee damage, which it would be really good. Plus you get a lot of damage over time from Toxin, Heat and Electricity. So yeah, that's basically one idea that you could put as his new second ability. Another one was what I called in my notes Elytra, which now this is gonna be sort of very detached from Chroma's current state, but brings more of the dragon aspect in him. When casting Elytra, Chroma unveils his wings, giving him 50% damage reduction from the back. Directional aim gliding and refreshing the ability forces the wings to do a 360-degree sweep with a 10-meter radius, dealing the current elemental damage type, healing 2% of Chroma's max health per enemy hit. Now, I know that was a lot to take in, so basically, you cast the ability, you get wings. Automatically, more dragon points for Chroma, because he has fucking wings now. Then, from the back, since you have your wings on your back, you gain 50% damage reduction. Which, I mean, it's just like a shield but on your back. Nothing too outstanding about it. But, you know, at least those pesky butchers won't be able to one-shot you anymore at higher levels, which is fine. Then, when you are aim gliding, you will glide towards the direction you're looking at. Now, this again sort of ties in with the whole wing aspect of Chroma now, and the dragon aspect, because he's actually able to fly, in a way. Sort of, kinda. In a way, sort of. You know, you get my point. Now, every time this ability is cast, and it's refreshable, so if you cast it, the animation sort of does a 360 spin, where the wings sweep around, hitting all enemies within 10 meters. So it's sort of like a slide attack or a spin attack. And with each enemy hit, Chroma leeches 2% of his maximum health back. So he has a way to heal, that's very, you know, fast. Plus, you know, wings are cool. And a tiny sort of quality of life thing I would like to add to this is that when you zoom in, the wings don't come in front of your camera, which would be annoying, but I mean, that's something that can be easily fixed. Now, on to the fourth ability, where we have Effigy. Now, this ability is also considered somewhat underwhelming by the community. For this one, we'll make it sort of like a companion. The Effigy will make the Effigy like a companion, sort of like Venari for Korra, which follows Chroma around, which is something that I've heard being requested a lot by the community as well. Now, with Effigy active, Chroma gains 20% sprint speed, but this is the biggie. He loses all of his armor with the change I'm proposing, and to counter that, he loses all of his armor, but he gains a damage link with Effigy, where 85% of the damage that Chroma receives is automatically transferred to the Effigy, so you only gain 15% of the damage you're being dealt, which sort of, you know, gives him this sort of link with his companion, and also doesn't make him completely vulnerable like it does now. So, you know, you gain a flat 85% damage reduction, and also all the buffs are shared with Effigy, so Vex Armor or Vexing Ward and all that, they're all shared with Effigy. Now, Effigy also has more aggro pull than Chroma and his team. So, you know, it gives a sort of more tankiness and makes him fulfill his tank role a bit better by actually drawing aggro away from himself and his team. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to do with Effigy. So it's not very good as it is with a sort of static turret kind of idea, and it really does nothing for Chroma, you know. It occasionally casts Spectral Scream, ragdolls a couple of enemies around, and I think it also has a stun, which it rarely ever casts, allowing enemies to keep hitting you, which, you know, that's why I included the damage reduction. So, I think that's about it for the rework. Thanks for watching, remember to like, share and comment your ideas below, and hit the notification button if you want to subscribe to be notified of my content, should you be interested to do so. And if you're not, feel free to not, and yeah, I guess that's it. Bye!